Now, the next most important characteristic of a handgun to evaluate is its physical length, the measurement from the rear of the handgun's slide to the tip of the barrel. And once again, handgun length presents yet another area of compromise. You see, the longer the gun, as a general rule, the more accurate you're going to be able to be with that gun in firing, and the more comfortable that gun is going to be to shoot. And I'll explain why in a moment. But the other side of the compromise is that the longer the handgun is, the more difficult it's going to be to carry concealed in a way that is actually concealable and in a way that is actually comfortable. And I'll start off by telling you that the big takeaway from this section is going to be that you should always seek to purchase the longest handgun you can while still being able to carry that gun comfortably and in a way that is concealed. So you do not want to buy any shorter of a handgun than you have to. So first, let's talk about why longer handguns are more accurate. The longer a handgun is, inevitably, the longer that gun's barrel is going to be. And barrel length is important because the longer a bullet stays in a firearm's barrel, the more time that bullet will have to accelerate ahead of the charge. So the longer the barrel, the more speed and the more energy that bullet will have when traveling to its target, and you want that. But believe it or not, the actual length of the barrel doesn't have a very big impact on that gun's inherent accuracy. At least not at the close distances that we're going to be firing our handguns at targets. Instead, handguns that are longer are generally more accurate because of a concept that we call sight radius. Sight radius is simply the measurement between the front sight and the rear sight. Now, sight radius is a big, complex topic, and it's something that we cover very thoroughly in another one of our training programs, Master Handgun Accuracy. But if I spend 25 minutes here talking about sight radius, then I think you'll probably find it pretty boring if you're new to firearms. And it just wouldn't make any sense to spend 25 minutes talking about sight radius when there are so many other more important things that we want to build your understanding of. Don't get me wrong, sight radius and its effect on your handgun accuracy are very important, just not so important with where you're most likely at right now watching this program. And so let me just summarize it for you here by saying that from the last 100 years of user experience and by running simple right angle triangle trigonomic calculations, we can know beyond any doubt that the longer the distance of your sight radius, or the longer your sight radius, or the longer the distance between your rear sight and your front sight, the greater your accuracy ability with that handgun is going to be. And it's a very dramatic effect, to the point where simply adding a 1/4 inch of sight radius, or especially a 1/2 inch, or especially an inch, that's going to make a big noticeable difference in how accurate you can be with that handgun. And so in summary, sight radius as well as the increased velocity of a longer barrel are two reasons why you do not want to get any shorter of a handgun than you have to. It's why you want to get a gun with as long of a slide as possible, provided you can still carry it comfortably and concealably. Now, I also mentioned that the longer the handgun, the more comfortable it's going to be to shoot. And the reason for that is because the longer the slide, the longer the recoil spring is going to be. And the recoil spring is what absorbs the force of the recoiling slide following every single shot. And the longer that spring is, the more surface area that recoil is being spread out over, which translates to a far softer felt recoil in your hands. And that is a very dramatic effect, I might add. And now, this is purely anecdotal. I don't have any scientific evidence to back this up. But I would estimate that for every inch that you add to a handgun's length, the felt recoil of that handgun diminishes by 15 to 20%. In conclusion, the handgun length represents an important series of balances and compromises that we make when we're deciding on a handgun. And all the reasons that we just discussed are why we want to make sure to find a carry position on our body that lets us carry as long of a handgun as possible while still being able to carry it comfortably and in a way that is concealed beneath your clothing from the naked eye. Okay, we've talked about a lot of handgun characteristics so far, but we're only halfway done. So at this point, I just want to make sure with a very quick reminder that we're keeping things in their proper perspective. Remember, all the knowledge that you're gaining right now has only one purpose, and that is to know how a handgun will perform on the range or on the street in a fight before you end up in those situations. Using the knowledge that you're gaining right now, you're going to be taking all the mystery out of this process. And I promise you, if you stick with this and learn this stuff, it'll become intuitive to you very quickly. It's going to seem confusing and complex and like a lot at first, but very quickly it'll become intuitive. It'll become natural. And when it does, you'll have a huge leg up over everybody else out there. Whether we're talking about the employees of gun stores who will try to sell you with fancy marketing slogans or gimmicks, or all of your fellow peers in this industry who those people are attempting to serve. You will be the expert. And so with that in mind, let's push forward.